La vie est un rêve, non?
Vortex. Vortex. Hello there, this is Batcho, and I'm coming to you now with yet another film review. Today we are reviewing the latest film from avant-garde, provocative director Gaspar Noe. Gaspar Noe is a pretty cool guy. He directed Irreversible, Climax, and Enter the Void. He also directed Love, but I haven't seen that one, so I'm not going to comment on it, because that would be inappropriate. Funnily enough, I did speak about him and his film Irreversible in my One Marvelous Scene video, so go check that out if you want some Gaspar Noe content. Irreversible is one of the most disturbing films I've ever seen. I really respect it, I think it's great, but it's hard to say, oh, I really love that film. It's like, okay, I don't really want to rewatch it ever again, but it's a fucking powerful film. I think Climax is his most rewatchable film. That's still like a harrowing drug trip though. Enter the Void I appreciate on a lot of levels. It's just a great depiction of the human experience and like all of the highs and lows of being alive. He deals with all of the extremes in life, like extreme pleasures, extreme pain, but his films do stick with you because of that. I'm not as much in love with Enter the Void as a lot of other people are, but I really appreciate what it is. Maybe objectively, Climax is my favourite film of his, just because it's like very airtight, it's very focused on what it is, and I think I'll probably rewatch that before any of the others. It also just functions as a horror film as well. Some of the cinematography and the camera work in that film is just astonishing. Like, ultimate camera fluidity. The way he shoots his films is like the camera is this omnipotent being. Enter the Void is just 2.5 hours of that sort of camera technique used to perfection. Some of the things Gaspar Noé's achieved cinematographically in his previous films is just like astounding. His films are also infamous for being very sensational and graphic and explicit. He's made some of the most overtly sexual films of all time. I think it's of the French extremist genre, but he does it well, and I haven't seen a film of his yet that I've disliked. This new film of his, Vortex, I went into pretty much knowing nothing. I just knew it was a Gaspar Noé film, and that's reason enough to prioritise it. The film essentially follows the lives of an ageing elderly couple, one of whom is now suffering from dementia. It's quite a limited, small, intimate cast. It's heavily focused on the perspectives of the husband and wife, and occasionally their son and his son, the grandkid. It's just all about observing their personal experience with having a loved one suffering from dementia. So it's just 2 hours of this slow, depressing, sad decline of these people's lives. Nothing but that. Not really anything else happening. It's such a film snob kind of movie where in a lot of ways nothing happens. But I really liked it. It is a slow burner. It's not necessarily supposed to be gripping or entertaining. It's very different to Doctor Strange. There's no post-credit scene. It's a really good film though. It is more so an opportunity to meditate on certain emotions that are a little hard to face. I would not change anything about it because for what it's going for, it's doing a solid job. It's a different kind of movie, but you have to have that full spectrum of emotions that you expose yourself to when you go into the theatre. It is important for the art form of cinema to have this balance of different films, a wide spread of films that play on all of the different aspects of the brain. The way it's filmed is utterly naturalistic, fly on the wall style. It is as if you are witnessing the lives of a real elderly couple. The lighting and the set design all completely restrained and naturalistic, and so is perhaps the strongest aspect of the film, the performances. Most people will get bored watching this film, but what it'll really come down to, whether someone likes it or not, is how invested they get with these characters. And that wasn't a problem for me because the acting is like top tier. Again, the camera is locked in and fixated on the lives of these characters. You forget that you're watching a fabricated piece of media and you just feel like you're watching actual people. And that's the best thing you can aim for when you're doing a slice of life type movie. Despite it seeming like there's not much going on, I think there's always substance on screen. There's always something on screen that's communicating something about the characters or their experiences. It is all just to show the human experience, so it avoids being pretentious where it's like literally nothing's happening. Because a lot of artsy and particularly French films run into that kind of cliche. They're just pretentious bullshit. But this had its reasons for being like this. Also, as it is a quiet, somber film about this elderly couple, it is a stark contrast to the rest of Gaspar Noé's filmography. His other films take place in this hyper-reality where everything's exaggerated and extreme and horrible or amazing. these heightened emotions again, where it's just like extremely violent or extremely sexual. But this film is just completely naturalistic, restrained and quiet, and it is always nice to see when there's a director that's known for a particular style can do something else. Doesn't just cling to one technique like you'd say Wes Anderson does. One type of film. It's really inspiring when you see directors challenge themselves like that. And also another thing with Gaspar Noé's other films is that they're often very disturbing, and there's this malevolent force, this malevolent energy, this malevolent vibe at play, where it feels as if the film is taking place within its own hellish reality. They're very cruel and bitter, but this film is very sensitive with the themes it's going for. There is definitely a variety of emotions to be had with especially Enter the Void, but Climax and Irreversible are much more geared towards being horrific and shocking and vile, like showing that side of humanity. This film is about showcasing something very depressing, but it's from a much more sympathetic angle. It is just about the human side of things, so for that it might be the most sensitive and heartfelt Gaspar Noé film.
Emmène-moi à la maison. Emmène-moi à la maison.
On est à la maison, maman.
Non.
T'as peur?
Another crucial filmmaking technique that makes this film a bit more standout is that for the vast majority of the runtime, the screen is split into two. It is always these two side-by-side simultaneous shots. For the most part, that's done to simultaneously follow the perspectives of both the husband and wife. But it's interesting because sometimes maybe the wife is doing something a bit more mundane, and then the husband is like conversing with someone on the phone, and really you should be like looking at that, but you can occasionally glance back to see what the wife is doing. There's also something that Gaspar Noé does that I'm pretty sure he did in Enter the Void, where instead of just having a normal cut from shot to shot, there's this quick fade out and fade back in again that simulates like a blinking of the eye. So again, that is kind of to evoke that fly on the wall, almost intimate observer, again as if the camera has a life of its own. As much as I did like the side-by-side technique because it was subtitled, because it was French, you had three different things to simultaneously follow, and it was like you had the side-by-side shots and you had to look down at the subtitles. He's like, oh, you had to catch everything because the dialogue was important too. I'm not going to go into much detail about this because it kind of spoils it, but there's a really nice monologue about the theatre experience, the cinema-going experience. There are many different themes that are hinted at throughout the film. It's mainly just about death and deterioration and the link between the loss of memory and death. The fact that all of these memories and life experiences that you collect kind of form your identity, form what is your existence. The husband character is also played by Dario Argento, which is quite amazing. Dario Argento was this Italian horror director from the 70s and 80s, I think. His most famous film is Suspiria. I think he was one of Gaspar Noé's biggest influences as a filmmaker. So it's cool to see Dario Argento acting in this film and being directed by Gaspar Noé. And he's absolutely astonishing in this film. There's no indication that he's like of a different craft. In a lot of ways, the character that Dario Argento is playing in this film could very much be interpreted as a version of his real self. His character in this film is a writer and a film enthusiast. I can't remember if he was also a director at some point as well. Displayed all around their apartment are these classic film posters. You see the poster for Fritz Lang's Metropolis a lot. I suppose that's very exciting for the cinephiles. They can like spot all of these like unique old ass films. Now I'm pretty sure there's like some Jean-Luc Godard films there as well. There's also just stacks upon stacks of different books that I think mostly the old man has collected. A lot of the apartment is very messy, and that idea of your existence being a collection of memories, an amalgamation of all of your life experiences, that theme is further extended upon and personified through their living space, as they have this vast abundance of mementos that they've collected over their long life. The apartment is its own character in this film, and in a lot of ways it is an extension of these people's lives. So you could interpret that as the living space being a parallel to the human brain, just a vast library of emotions and mementos and memories. A huge amalgamation of different things that have just forged this life, this thing. It's all up for interpretation, I know, I'm not trying to be all, ooh, I know the answers, or the Vortex explained. Through some of Dario Argento's dialogue, the film flirts with the idea of films themselves being a extension of your mind, your memories. As films are all about capturing a wide variety of human emotions and human experiences into like a hour and a half chunk or like a two-hour chunk. It also talks about films being dreams, so then again you have that idea of films being an extension of someone's identity. And of course all of these themes perfectly tie back into the topic of dementia and how as the brain starts to deteriorate, that is very much its own kind of death. If your whole existence is based upon this huge collection of memories and then those memories start to fade, like that's a slow death. So yeah, it's a very uplifting and happy film. So yeah, it's a good companion piece to B-movie.
La vie est un rêve, non?
Oui. La vie est un rêve dans un rêve.
Regardless of whether you want to buy into all of those themes, it's still just a very good movie about dementia itself and that experience. For me, there was also some exploration into this idea of your partner being unintentionally cold towards you just because they have no memory of you. It's almost cruel for the other partner to be treated with such indifference, and the film communicated a lot of those kind of emotions as well. That's just a nice new angle that this film is showing with this subject, and also a real life fact that kind of makes it all even more sad or disturbing or distressing is the fact that the idea for this film was conceived by Gaspar Noe after he suffered a near fatal brain hemorrhage. So it is quite an intense piece of media, piece of art. It is a little difficult to package this film into a like YouTube film reviewer recommendation. I'll just say that this film is more so about giving you an opportunity to reflect on these kind of emotions in life. Even though it's not necessarily riveting or engaging, it is still a very enriching experience. And I'm overall really happy that I went to watch this at the cinema. It was a very small theatre room, very intimate. Really, one of the central aims of this channel is to get people who wouldn't have seen certain films to see them. So maybe just take a risk and expose yourself to like some deep and scary and upsetting ideas and themes. Because it is an experience. It's an experience to go through watching this film. It's not about, oh my god, who's Doctor Strange going to meet? Is he going to like run into Mr. Fantastic or Mr. Freeze or something? No, it's not about that. It's about dementia, and it's very sad. You don't necessarily have to run to the cinemas to see it because it's probably quite hard to see, but definitely check it out. It's a really, really good movie. You fucking dicks.